You're listening to the official Minnesota Wild podcast, presented by Acrisure.
To the pros. It's time for Beyond the Pond on the Fan. Here are your hosts, Pat Micheletti and Kevin Fallness.
Let's talk hockey!
Well, March Madness takes a whole different point of view down at XL Energy Center in St. Paul. Kevin Fallness and Pat Micheletti with you from XL Energy Center. And I know that March Madness is all about the hardwood this time of year, Patrick, but not in our world.
Not in our world, Kevin. And I think it needs some due respect also.
Yeah.
Right?
And
because it's on that cold surface.
That's right, and it is the state of hockey after all. And you had a very busy travel schedule, as you always do this time of year, especially. How was Mankato last night?
It was an electric atmosphere. Before we talk about the hockey part of it, the fans and the people in the Mankato area, which includes St. Peter and all those towns around. You want to talk about support for their team. I mean, It was sold out. It was a whiteout. It was, for the last 30 years or so since they've been Division I, every single night they show up. And so hats off to them and their administration. They did a great job of putting on the game last night.
Outstanding, and Minnesota State comes away with a victory. They double up the Tommies. 4-2 is the final. Yep. We'll get into that as the show moves along, because the head coach of the Mavericks, Luke Strand, will join us right around the bottom of the hour, as well as David Carle, head coach at DU. The Pioneers are at it again. They got the victory last night. They're battling for the NCHC Frozen Faceoff Championship tonight at 7:38 at the X.
Oh, just, poor little Denver. All they do is, they get through the season, and now it's time where they get very, very serious and focused. And again, they're going to be an awfully tough out come tournament time next week.
Lots of college hockey coming your way. Not only those two coaches at the bottom of the hour, we also got Brad Schlossman joining us in studio for the 11 o'clock hour. Yeah, he's in town for the NCHC Frozen Faceoff. He's going to watch the Wild a little bit this afternoon. Nice doubleheader for him and anyone that's coming down XL Energy Center. Love to have you, including Michael Russo. He'll be in studio at noon before he heads up to the Al Shaver press box to watch the Wild face off against the Buffalo Sabres. A week ago this time, Patrick, the sky was falling. The earth was falling apart. The Wild got their doors blown off by the St. Louis Blues, and it looked very grim around the XL Energy Center. Since then, they've rattled off a pair of victories, and it feels like things are trending back in the right direction.
Here's where it was all doom and gloom, okay? In my estimation.
Yep.
It was doom and which goes into why they are where they are at. It was all doom and gloom from the people from the outside.
Okay.
It's called noise. The people like you and me and writers and this and that, right?
Yep.
But in that room, Kevin, they look at where they're at. They know their injuries. They go out and play. There's one thing, whether they get beat 5-1 like they did by the Blues, it's very, very seldom that you don't see this team busting their tail every shift that they play. And when you have that attitude and you believe in yourselves, you know you can get out of it. They don't worry about 97 and 14 and
go down the list, 25, 17.
Yeah, I'm losing
90, 23.
I'm losing track, right?
I know.
And these injuries, they just keep playing. And if you don't have that built-in culture, that's everyone, culture, right? We all hate the word, right?
Yeah.
But that's the word you use. If you don't have that, you're not going to win. They have it in there, and they don't worry about things that they could complain about. They just keep playing.
You know what else helps, though? Solid goaltending, and they're getting that in
Of course
spades.
it does. Yeah, I mean, to go along with all that, right?
Yeah.
And they got their power play going in the game again. I know they scored 2 power play Hartman.
Against the Kings.
Yeah, against the Kings.
Yeah.
They had 2 power play goals. You need that at this time of the year, and they got them, and so it's 2 in a row, right?
Yeah,
on the good side.
2 in a row coming off that awful lie. And Matt Zuccarello in the postgame said an embarrassing loss on home ice against a divisional opponent that's below you in the standings, that's trying to climb into the top 8. They come to St. Paul, blow their doors off. 5-1 was the final. The response since then, I mean, to me, the LA Kings are going to be one of the toughest teams in the Western Conference.
No, without
in
a doubt.
an incredibly tough conference.
Yep.
And they limited them pretty well. They gave up the 1 power play goal to open up the hockey game. The Wild respond with 3 consecutive, including the eventual winner by Matt Zuccarello, who, by the way, is also having a fantastic run here as of late.
Yeah, and we can't forget, Kevin, there's 82 games in a season. 82 games in a season. You are not going to be great every night. And so, you have to, I know we go game to game. As fans, we go game to game. Oh, terrible. Oh, great. Oh, so. But you got to look at it, in the long term of this thing. And, this is where we're at right now. They're in a good position. And so we just play on. I talk about those back-to-back wins. Wild exploded for 3 quick ones against the Seattle Kraken, including Ryan Hartman getting things started.
Fresh off the bench through the slot. Hartman with a wrister. He scores! Ryan Hartman stays high. 3 for Boldy in front. He scores! A loose puck, and Boldy buries it. Freddie Gaudreau now backdoor shot. They score again! This time it's Liam Ogren. His first of the season. And 4.5 minutes in, it is 3-0 in favor of the Wild.
Yeah, good way to get things started Wednesday night. Wild open up with 3 goals in the first 4.5 minutes. It started off by Ryan Hartman, who, by the way, ends up with the eventual game winner. Wild blank the Kraken 4-0 is the final. Ryan Hartman, nice enough to join us now on the phone lines. Ryan, that's Pat Micheletti. I'm Kevin Fallness. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Morning. How you guys doing?
I think we're good. I know you're doing well. We were just talking about the problems this team was having 1 week ago today. Zuccarello in the postgame called it embarrassing. You lose to the St. Louis Blues, but the response since then, Ryan, has been amazing. 2 straight victories, and you guys are scoring some goals. It feels like things have gone a complete 180 in the span of just a week.
Yeah. I think, we were playing some good hockey. The St. Louis game wasn't a great game for us, but I think, if you look at some of the other games, beating Colorado and, in Vancouver was a really good hockey game that we just, like I said, couldn't find the net. And we harped on it. Everyone was asking why they weren't going in, but we knew we were getting opportunities, and it was a matter of time before things started to go the other way, because it's not like we were getting lack of chances. So, it was nice for those to go in early in that game. But, guys are feeling good. Hopefully we continue that.
Hey, Ryan, congrats on the recent hot streak that you're currently on. You're playing terrific hockey. But I think it was you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, soundbite I heard, is that you said something to the effect that you guys know you're a good team. You're not worrying about the outside noise and the sky is falling and that to me that's all that matters is the guys in the room who feel good about your team and the way that you're playing. You're not worrying about injuries. You're not making excuses. You're just going out every night and for the most part getting the job done.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do right now is show up each night and, put our best effort and win a hockey game. We need to win games right now. I mean, obviously we're still in a really good spot. Our goal is to win games and get ourselves in the best playoff position as we can. If we do happen to lose one, we can't be sitting there pouting about it and feeling sorry. We got another game in the near future that we need to win. So it's obviously losses happen throughout the season. It's a long year, but if they do happen, you got to regroup, especially this time of year. And in playoffs, you're going to lose games, and that game once it's over, it doesn't really matter anymore. You got to move forward to the next one. So we're kind of having that mindset right now.
You can't feel sorry for yourself after a loss. You also can't feel sorry for yourself no matter who's in or out of the lineup. You're missing some very important pieces these days, yet you guys are more than just treading water. You're getting victories. You're about to secure a spot in the top 8. Not to jinx anything, but I think last I saw it's about a 94% chance. How are you guys getting it done, considering the fact some of those names are still missing from the lineup and probably will be for, who knows, maybe right up till the playoffs begin?
Yeah, I think from the start of the year, we're a deep team. We got guys, we got veteran guys, we got some younger guys that can play in certain roles and that can move up and down the lineup. Unfortunately, the last few years we're kind of used to guys coming in and out throughout the season. It's not something that's foreign to us lately. So, like I said, something it happens. Obviously, we want them in the lineup. We're a much better team with them playing clearly. But we had guys that have played long enough that know how to play when certain guys aren't there and how to step up when their role is elevated.
You're one of those guys. I mean, I know you didn't want that time off for that suspension. You served it. It ended up being 8 games, and unfortunately for you, it was right over the Four Nations tournament. So it ended up being about a month where you're sitting on the sidelines waiting for an opportunity to get back in. That's the part that stinks. And I know there's a lot of other things that go along with it that stink. But the good part is you got a chance to reset mentally, physically, and come back renewed. They needed you in the worst way, and you're providing some offense. Goals in back-to-back games, 3 goals and 6 points in the 8 games back since returning from suspension. How are you feeling now? I would think you've got a motor ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, for sure. It was long with that break thrown right in the middle. I was doing a lot of, obviously making sure I was ready, but even after the break, I still had 6 more games left or 5, whatever it was. So it was a chance to be able to watch from above and analyze the game a little bit, our team, and for a personal standpoint, be able to work on some things. And like I said, a little kind of rest, reset in the middle of the year. Obviously, everyone gets that with the break, but it was a way, like you said, mentally and physically, let things heal and from the body standpoint, and like I said, work on some things on the ice that sometimes you don't get a chance to do during the year with how often we play and having days off and all that. So it was obviously I would have liked to have been out there those 8 games for sure with the guys and be playing, but try to make the best of a bad situation.
Well, you are a key part of this team. You're on a hot streak. Keep it going, and we're going to have him in studio, don't you think?
Yeah, very soon. Well, but the problem is you're so busy, not only the hockey, but you're married, you're a dad. Yeah. How's life away from the rink, Hartsy, and how things have changed over the last 24 months?
Yeah, it's been good. It's having a little one at home has been awesome. I'm still getting good sleep, which is good. He's been a really good baby for us, and it's just another part of life that you keep gaining experience in certain things. And I never held a baby really until having him. I was always nervous to hold other people's kids, so I'm glad I waited though, because when I first held him, it was pretty special. So. Yeah, it's been awesome, and me and my wife are really blessed for having him.
Well, good for you. Congrats again. That is, I'm going to throw one more at you, and then we'll get you out of here. Vinny Hinostroza, his addition to the team. You knew a lot more about him probably than we did. He jumps on here, and you guys have a long, long history, both on and off the ice. How nice has it been to have, I know in talking to him, it's been great for him to have you here. What's it been like for you to be reunited with Hinostroza?
Yeah, it's awesome. We spent a lot of time in our life together, growing up, playing on the same team and winning a bunch, in AAA hockey, and then playing in the minors together, playing with the Blackhawks our rookie years together, roommates at home and on the road. It was almost too much. It was kind of like we needed that little break the last 8-9 years.
Junior national team also, right? You played on the U.S. junior national team together too, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
In Sweden.
In Malmo.
Yep.
He moved into the neighborhood. He's renting a house near me. It's nice, it's nice to have him around. We get to play on the same line together, which is great because I feel we have a lot of chemistry, and we've played together our whole lives. So it's pretty exciting to have him, and he's built a family too, which I haven't been able to hang with them too much just because obviously his schedule is so busy and with having the kids, so having them close and all that, it's awesome.
Great stuff, Ryan. We'll let you get to the rink. Good luck this afternoon. Good luck the rest of the season. Keep her going.
I appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Yep, thanks.
There you go. Wild forward Ryan Hartman, 10 goals and 23 points in 56 games. Maybe an up and down start to the season, but he's catching fire at the right time, Patrick.
Yeah, blessing in disguise. Maybe the suspension.
100%. I mean, that was a month away.
You've got guys that have played a lot of hockey for this team, and to get a guy. He's fresh. He's, it's like the beginning of the season for him, right?
Yep.
With that little break, and now he's got his legs, and he's feeling confident. He's scoring some goals, and that's what you need.
Like I said, if he could choose, he would have not had that break.
Yeah, exactly,
that 8-game suspension was more than just time away from the ice. That cost him almost $500,000.
Well, it cost him money, and it could have hurt the team. They persevered through that, but that was a time when Kaprizov was out, Eck in and out, Brodin out, different guys, and so they were down numbers, couldn't call a guy up. And so, but they got through it, and that's a good thing.
And like I said, he got a chance to mentally and physically reset, and now he's recharged and ready to go for the most important time of the year. Win today gives him a 4-2-1 on the 7-game homestand. Who would have thought that was possible, especially considering how things got started here? But it ends today. Puck drops at 1:08 as the Wild host the Buffalo Sabres. Let's squeeze in a break, and then when we continue, you've waited all week for it, Patrick. But when we continue, we get Brett Blakemore's Breakaways.
I can't wait.
On Beyond the Pond, right here on Real quick, Patrick, congrats to Brad Frost and his crew. The Lady Gophers last night unfortunately fell to Wisconsin at Ritter Arena in the NCAA Frozen Four on the women's side. They fall 6-2. I know that's a tough way for the season to end. Very good Wisconsin Badgers team and a great season by Brad Frost and his crew despite the loss. Yeah, I didn't see the game, but reading the story on it, I don't, you see 6-2, you think blowout, but I think it was much, much closer than that. And but they had, hey, listen, you get to where they get to, pretty much every single year. Congrats to them on a really good season. And Wisconsin has been the class the last couple of years. And that's what Brad said to us last week when we talked to him. Mark Johnson has done a terrific job, with the Badgers. And so, tough match. You get to those games, Kevin, it's hard to win. It's really, really hard to win. On that note, it's time for Brett Blakemore's Breakaways.
It's time for Brett Blakemore's Breakaways.
Kaprizov in alone. Nobody can catch him. Kaprizov scores!
And now, Blakemore's Breakaways.
Do you look forward to this each week, Brett, or do you dread it?
You want the truth?
I do want the truth. Always tell me the truth.
A little mix of both. This week, I think we'll be okay.
All right, let's find out.
You set yourself up, though, Brett. I mean, I have to admit it, but go ahead.
Well, it depends on who you ask. Anyways, here we go. So I was listening to the latest Russo pod, and they brought up an interesting point. I'm not talking about the team and whether they should like nothing like tanking or anything like that, but just purely from a fan. I just said I'm not, Pat. Why are you sighing at me already?
I just know where it's going.
Say anything. No.
Go ahead.
From a fan perspective, as far as playoff seeding goes, right? The talker is always, do you want, the first wild card spot, or do you want the third spot to get the highest seed possible? To me, it was brought up on the podcast that, LaPanta said, I want to play a division rival because that's exciting and it's fun playing a division rival. To me, I don't give a rip about that. I want the best chance for the Wild to go far in the playoffs, and I don't care if it's playing against Vegas at 9:30 at night. I'd rather have that because I think it's a better chance for the Wild to move on. Whose side do you kind of fall on? Do you think it's fun to have these division rivals, or do you think whatever's best for the Wild is best for me?
I don't fall on any side. Here's how I feel. If you have the mentality that you're hoping to play somebody and not somebody, then you have then that attitude is going to only lead to a first-round loss. So you should not care. You should continue. You should continue to try to win. The fans should continue to try to want them to win. And that's the bottom line for me, because ultimately, if you want to be the champ, you gotta, doesn't matter who you play. Doesn't matter. So you keep on winning and you keep a good attitude, and you don't say, oh, yeah, we fell, but that's okay. Not for me anyway.
I agree with that, but I will say the Wild probably match up better against Vegas. For example, if you're gonna, they're not going to try to figure out how come.
Yeah,
because Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg are monsters. Not that Vegas is a pushover, but in my opinion, the Wild match up better against the Golden Knights than those three monsters from the Central Division.
Well, I think you could make a case in point if you look at every team and say, yeah, but maybe we have them here, maybe we have them there. Maybe the one slides a little bit further, but you're playing, let's take Vegas. You're playing Vegas? Okay. They're heavy. They've got some skill. And so, they're awfully tough. Dallas, yeah, they added a superstar in Ratnan. Now they're deeper. So, you can go through it. They're all good.
Yeah. I mean, there's not an easy path in the West. There's no question.
No. So, we can hum and hum this and that. Maybe, I think you worry about how you're playing and what you have to do to beat the whatever team you're playing.
Yeah, I mean, if I was talking to Ryan Hartman last time, I'd just say, just keep winning, and wherever we are is wherever we are. I'm just saying from an entertainment.
What if you were talking to Foligno?
I'd say the same thing. But what I'm saying, the question was more of, from a fan perspective, do you care more about the rivalries and seeing, is that exciting for you? Or for a fan perspective, just, I don't care who we play as long as it's the best shot to win. That
would be my thinking from a fan's perspective. Obviously, the players can't think like this. They got to win as many games as they can for the final 13 and get the best spot possible. Yeah. But from a fan's perspective, I think they match up better against Vegas. And if they got that number one wild card spot, that would be a bonus. But that doesn't mean I don't want them to continue to push for a top 3 spot in the Central. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer. How nice is it going to be? I believe it's the case that we'll get at least one of the big 3 back. Jonas Brodin back, with Juracek being sent back down to Iowa. How nice it'd be finally to get one of those guys back.
It feels like, in watching practice yesterday and listening to John Hines, that of the 3 that missed the last game, you had Johansson out with illness, you had Rossi leave early in the first period, and you had Jonas Brodin, of course, on the sidelines as well. He's been skating with the team for the better part of a week and beyond. It feels like all 3 of those guys are back in the lineup today. That's huge, because not only did you miss those first 2 guys, then you lose Rossi in the first period. Despite the dry spell that he's going through, he plays a pretty significant role on this team.
Brodin is going to be an important piece. I don't care. I want him back when he's ready, and not rush it.
So, it looks like he's ready.
And if they think he's ready, then he's ready. Yeah. And so, that's great. Be great to get all of them back, and I don't know that situation. Hopefully they will.
Yeah, I have not seen, I'll be honest, I haven't seen Kaprizov or Ek in what feels like forever.
Yeah.
And then now Foligno's on that list too, whatever he's going through with his upper body injury. You're
going to need a healthy Foligno come playoff time, because it's a different game.
Yeah, we're running out of time here. There's only 13 games left in the regular season, so you got to get these guys fired up, get them back on the ice and ready for the postseason, because if they're going to do anything, they need 97-14 in particular, and it'd be a bonus to get 17 back soon, too.
And can I add one thing to Brett's question?
Sure.
Or statement, is breakaway. I don't know if he scored, missed the net, whatever.
It's a 2-on-0 now.
But here's something that you have to think of when you go into the playoffs. You know, we always say, you know, the playoffs are a different game, which they are. They're harder, they're stronger. But if the major key, in my estimation, for the playoffs is health.
Yeah.
Is health. Because we don't know. We always find,
sure.
Remember, at the end of every playoff series, we find out broken bone, surgery, this, that, you know, so health.
Yeah.
You have a healthy team, your chances of winning are greatly improved.
How do you think the Oilers feel right now? Both the Draisaitl and McDavid out of the lineup today.
Yeah. You know, and for how long, we don't know.
Yeah.
But you don't want either. Hey, Edmonton goes into the playoffs with them a little banged up. And when I say a little banged up, they can maybe play, but, you know, have those. That's hard.
Yep.
It's really hard because other teams know it, and they're going to hit them, and, you know, it's difficult.
Give me one more, Brett.
Well, Zeev Buium, he's in town. He just played at the X the other night. Will he make the jump in your predictions to the Minnesota Wild immediately as Brock Faber did a few years ago?
That's a good question. I think if their season ends early, I think you'll see him get some games. And then the determination of the coach, whether he believes he's good enough to be in the lineup and he can help. Yeah, then maybe. I think they'll probably keep him up here just to get him acclimated. But that's a really hard question. All depends on injuries, too.
Yep.
You know, if with, Brodin, if whoever, right?
Yeah, a lot can change over the...
And listen, the decor that they have right now is playing pretty darn good, in my estimation.
Top to bottom.
Yeah.
Pick one guy you don't like.
One through
I
seven.
challenge you to name one.
Yeah, 1 through 7, they're playing pretty well. So you may not want to upset the apple cart. And, you know, I don't know if they think he's that type of guy like Faber to jump right in. We'll see.
Brett, we got to go. Wonderful job as always. Maybe we'll get back to you
great job,
as
Brett.
the show goes on. Speaking of Zeev Buium, his head coach is going to join us after the break. David Carle from DU, plus we got Luke Strand from Minnesota State coming up here shortly.
And I just want to say sorry about the loss the other night.
Yeah, it was a tough loss. Tough out.
Good job, Brett. We're back with more after this on The Fan.
This is
Beyond the Pond continues. A wonderful day in the state of hockey. Lots of stuff going on, including at XL Energy Center, where tonight it's the NCHC Frozen Face-Off. David Carle's DU Pioneers taking on Western Michigan for the conference title. Joining us now on the phone lines, head coach of the Pioneers, David Carle. David, that's Pat Micheletti. I'm Kevin Fallness. Thanks for taking time for us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Happy to join.
Let's start with the victory last night. You get past Arizona State, a very good Arizona State team last night, 4-2 to advance to the championship game. 2-2 after 2 periods of play. You guys break through in the third period for the eventual winner. How'd you get it done?
Yeah, they're a tough team to play. Certainly they had our number during the regular season, winning 3 of 4. I thought we did a better job last night keeping them, to the outside the best we could. We kept them to single-digit shots in the second and the third. And then our big boys capitalized on some chances. Huge goal in the third period, big power play goal, and a face-off goal as well. So it took everybody, and proud of the group because they're a tough team to play against, can generate a lot with their offensive depth.
Hey, David, when I look at Denver during the season, I don't look if they're in first place, in last place, middle of the pack, because I always know at the end of the season is when you guys really start cranking up and playing well. That being said, this year, you had some stumbles here and there. You were fighting for a home playoff spot. Do you feel that your team now is starting to get that feeling back as we, are in the playoffs now?
Yeah, it was an interesting year because we started 12-0 and started really hot, and then we kind of hit our, I would say, like, not playing well. We hit that bump right before the holiday break. I think coming out of the break, there's some games that we would have liked a better result in. You think about up at Duluth, we thought we deserved to sweep. We thought we deserved to sweep St. Cloud at home. The game that goes to the 17 shootout rounds with Omaha, we thought we should have won in regulation. There's results that we didn't get, but we like how we actually played in those games. So we feel like we've been playing good hockey in the second half, and I think the lesson through those games in the second half, those perceived bumps in the road, was just how tight the margins are, and you leave the littlest thing to chance, and that's what can happen to you. And so I think our group is playing with a little bit more urgency down the stretch now, especially after that Friday loss to CC. We came back pretty resoundingly, scored 15 goals in 2 games to end their season, and then played pretty well defensively last night against Arizona State, and our big boys found a way to get us the lead in the third period, and we didn't look back.
I know you've got bigger goals down the road, but the here and now is the Frozen Face-Off Championship game. If you want tickets, by the way, available at the XL Energy Center box office. You can also go to Ticketmaster.com. The DU Pioneers taking on Western Michigan. Puck drops at 7:38 tonight from the X. What do you have in store tonight? What's going on with Western Michigan? What are you up against?
Yeah, obviously a very well-coached team, a lot of turnover on their team from a year ago. First, and their staff has done a great job getting them all on the same page, and they don't give you much offensively. You have to earn everything. They're very good with their gaps and taking away time and space. The goaltending has been excellent for them all year. I think, obviously both of us are in the tournament. We're both fighting for a little bit of seeding. They're trying to get a 1 seed from the Gophers. We're trying to get a 2 seed from Providence. And so there's something on the line, certainly with the big picture. But I think both teams want to learn how to win big trophies. And I think big picture for us, too, we play kind of a high-flying offensive team in Arizona State yesterday, and now we're playing, probably a little bit more defensively sound, bigger, heavier team in Western Michigan. And next weekend we're staring down the barrel of, playing Providence and potentially Boston College, or a BU and then a Michigan State or a Cornell type of team. And so I think to get the variance in playing styles and having to do that on back-to-back nights is a great opportunity and lesson for our team to have to try and adjust and change our game a little bit to the opponents. And so for that, we're looking forward to the challenge tonight. We know Western's a great team. We've only played them twice this year. Lost in regulation in Lawson, and then beat them in overtime in Lawson back in December when we were kind of going through our little bit of a funk of not playing great. So going to be a great hockey game tonight. Obviously the last game in the X for our league, and would encourage everyone to try and come out and support.
Hey, David, a couple guys I want to touch on a little bit and, would love your comments on. And, we talk about him all the time because, he's the first-round draft pick of the Minnesota Wild.
And you knew this question was coming too, right, David?
You knew it was coming.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, right. But the kid is just a phenomenal player. What has he meant to you? And then secondly, the second player that maybe we don't talk enough about, a Hobey Baker candidate, Jack Devine, just a terrific offensive player for you. Comment a little bit on both of those guys.
He's having great seasons for us. Zeev, obviously you guys, again, you have a high interest in due to the Wild picking him. Obviously I thought steal of the draft, great
for
organization. Sure. Great player. Think it's a great match for a number of years to come, and really excited for Zeev that the Wild ended up taking him, and excited for Billy and their whole staff that Zeev was available at that spot, because I think he'll be able to really help them as well. So, game-breaking ability with the puck, vision, but also, his competitiveness. He's been a part of a lot of winning in his very young career, to adapt his game to what the game needs from him. And so I think he's destined for a very successful pro career. And I think the Wild fans should be very excited to know that, again, he's been a part of a lot of winning teams, and hopefully that translates for you all in the Wild and trying to reach your ultimate goal of winning a Stanley Cup. And then Jack Devine, again, second year as a Hobie top 10, doing it this year, leading the country in points, by 4 points. It's a fairly wide margin at this stage, and scored 28 goals a year ago. This year he's at 13 or 14, but he's doing it in a different way, playing with two shoot-first type players in King and Thompson. Last year, Russo and Webster were two kind of pass-first players, and he was the one putting it in the back of the net. Has a little bit of remnants and remindings of a Bobby Brink when, he led the country in scoring and, from our estimation, got snubbed on the Hobie Baker. We're obviously hopeful that Zeev or Jack both have a great opportunity to win it, being in the final 10. Both great players and, members of our team. We think, arguably none is more important as them in the country. So happy to coach both of them for as long as we have. And the best part about both of them is they're competitive. They want to try and win another national championship.
David, I'll let you go on this note. It probably feels like it was forever ago, but I bring it up because the World Juniors are coming to XL Energy Center and Mariucci in December of 2025. Wonderful tournament that you guys just completed up there in Canada, back-to-back gold medals. What did you take away from that experience, and what should fans brace themselves for with that tournament coming to their backyard?
Yeah, obviously it's a huge moment, for our country to have the opportunity to host it. And it's just an amazing event, amazing tournament. Obviously all the best players in the world on one stage and playing for their country. It was an incredible experience being a part of it the last 2 years. Feel real fortunate to have coached two great teams that we were able to win gold medals. And, now we come to, our home soil as a two-time defending champs, and I think there'll be a lot of excitement from the team and the players to try and chase that three-peat and do it on home ice. And so for our fans in our country, I just think it'll be an unbelievable atmosphere and experience to be able to cheer on these young men who care so deeply, about our country. I think everyone maybe thinks, all these first-round picks that, they care about their own careers and their own successes. And I think that's the coolest thing, is just to see them all really check their ego and not necessarily do what they want to do, but do what the team needs them to do and what the country needs them to do at a time, in our world where I think patriotism is so important, and rallying around these great young men. They need us. And so I encourage everyone, if you can, to attend and get out and support the quest for three that our team will certainly be on.
Awesome stuff, David. Thank you very much for joining us. Good luck tonight, and good luck here the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate having me on.
Thanks, David. Take care. Good luck.
The head coach of the Denver Pioneers, David Carle, on the ice tonight at XL Energy Center. Great double-header in St. Paul tonight. Of course, the Wild play at 1 o'clock. DU in Western Michigan. Get tickets at the XL Energy Center box office or go to Ticketmaster.com.
I mean, he's been just such an inspirational story. You know the background of him. He went to Denver and then couldn't play because of a heart condition, and Jim Montgomery kept him around and let him coach, and then he's worked his way up to now one of the top coaches in all of hockey. Can't ask him. I can ask you, and I'll ask Schloss. Yeah. He's destined for the NHL, right? Well, I think you know what. Listen, he's winning national championships. And he loves it. And so I think the timing is going to have to be right. It's going to have to be with the right team, with the right players and right management and all of that. So he's in a really good spot right now to just kind of take his time and pick and choose and see which one. But for sure, I mean, he's gonna. Like everybody else, you always want to get to the top, and the National Hockey League is the best league in the world. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll see him in an NHL rink in the not-too-distant future.
Good to catch up with David Carle. That's the head coach at DU. The head coach at Minnesota State is Luke Strand. Pat Micheletti was on the broadcast last night as the Mavs win the CCHA Mason Cup final. They double up the Tommies 4-2. Luke Strand, nice enough to join us now on the phone lines. Congrats on the win last night, Luke, and thanks for joining us.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it, and thanks for the kind words there. It's fun winning, and it's fun actually watching the guys back in the gym already this morning and getting back to the grind.
Well, somehow I'm not surprised. I texted you late last night just on a whim, thinking, you're out celebrating and stuff, but you got right back to me. So, I appreciate that. And again, like Kevin said, what a win last night. Congratulations. Your fans, I applaud them as much as I applaud you for winning the game, because they have been coming out in droves for years, and they were out there last night. And as you know, the atmosphere was terrific.
Oh, it's tremendous. I keep saying it, but they've got a hockey knowledge beyond, a goal or a big check. They understand an exit that was so meaningful, or a non-turnover puck that you slid behind. They just get the game, and yet they're pretty loud and proud. And the whiteout was a great sight to see, and they had a whole Friday to get prepared for it. I think someone did their part.
We talked, during the day yesterday and the day before, and kind of, what type of game is it going to be? And, and I think we both came to the conclusion it's going to be, two good teams, a rivalry game, and, it's going to be tight. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to score goals. And last night's game did not disappoint.
No, I thought it was a really good game. And the pace is, having watched it back now, the pace is good. It was physical. It was clean physical, which was, obviously good, moving forward as far as injury sake, all that type of thing. But it was a good prepper for us. I think, you start to put on pressure a little bit and see how guys respond. And to our guys' credit, they keep standing pretty tall. Even in some cases, even though we had the bid locked up and whatnot, they still were coming forward. It was good.
I look at your lineup, Luke, and of course there's a name that sticks out, especially for the folks here in the Twin Cities. In
Alex Tracy?
Well, Alex Tracy, too, for sure. But let's talk first about Rhett Pitlick. Transfers to Minnesota State after 3 years with the Gophers, 13 goals, 40 points in 38 games with the Mavs. What has he done for your program?
Just a special kid. I love that he loves to work at his craft. He's taken on maybe a different player type in itself a little bit here. Like he's played a 200-foot. He's without the puck. His work rate is really gone up. I think it's going to translate well for pro hockey for him. And his dynamic and his expectation of execution is high. So it helps day to day around here in practice. He's a hockey nut. I don't think there's many stats in the world that can slide by him. That he's not pretty knowledgeable, but he wants to be coached. He wants to learn. As a coach, you love when a player's got some. I just think that desire and drive to ask back and really want to deep dive into their own career. But he's done it with team value, which has been special around here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you and I were talking about him a little bit, and you said, he's a 200-foot guy, and makes good defensive plays. So I purposely watched him in the defensive zone last night. And you are dead on. I mean, he made a couple plays in the defensive zone last night that, maybe saved goals or got the puck out of the zone. So, it was, he's really become that complete player that, obviously because of the work that you guys have done with him.
Yeah, it's on him. I appreciate that. It's on him though. Like, early in the year, I remember taking him off the ice on a 5-on-6 and he really looked at me like, I want to be on the ice for 5-on-6.
Yeah.
Like, well, then we got some work to do. And now we don't miss him. Like, he's out there 5-on-6 in the games. He's got that skill level. His stick skill is so good. But when those guys can use their stick skill for the defensive side of the puck as much as the offensive side, because their brain is on, it's on key with what the opponent's thinking. It's a huge value for their own career.
Yeah. Now, we also talked about the fact that you know that you were going into the tournament, and you had 5 or 6 teams that you're trying to break film down for, to get ready, because we won't know until tomorrow where you're going to end up, who you're going to play, and all of that being said. So that being said, is it more about you guys and your own preparation for getting your team to the way that you want to go into next weekend playing?
Yeah, I think some of the maybe we're a little bit on the competitive side about knowing what other people are going to do, but for the staff wise, it's good for us to have on. I don't know, the players don't get all the information we have, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But you get into specials, you get into situations, fun to watch the clock tick and see how different teams are playing, in their specials and their 6-5s and their 5-on-6s at the end of games and start of periods and any nuances maybe face-off wise they do. And for me, it's always good to know who's coming out after a power play and who's coming out after a penalty kill. It's probably about us, but we got to keep sharpening our own stuff. And I think last night I just love the fact that we took it on as a game we had to win, and I thought that will be maybe the biggest help we can get for ourselves.
Luke, congrats on the victory last night. Good luck here. We'll find out what's next for you tomorrow when they unveil the brackets and all the regions and all that other good stuff. We'll be paying close attention up here in the Twin Cities.
No, thank you. It's there's a lot of talk about Fargo and some school up that way, so it's maybe it all comes to fruition.
I have an inkling I'm going to see you next week, but that's just me. I'm not on the committee, but we'll see you next week.
We already talked about that, Pat. You got to wear a different hat.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks, Coach. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yep.
Take care.
There he is, Luke Strand, head coach at Minnesota State. They win the CCHA Mason Cup final. They take down the Tommies 4-2 in Mankato. It was a game that they had already clinched a spot in the in the NCAA tournament, like you guys talked about. But still, they get the victory. They get some hardware for their mantle, and now the big stuff coming up here in very short order.
Yeah, and I don't know if I made too big a deal of this, Kevin, but they already knew that they were getting in the tournament, and so. As a player, are you getting pumped up for a game like last night? Even though you knew at the end of the day, win or lose, you're still going in. But it was important to them. Yeah. And number one, because it's a rivalry with St. Thomas, and number two, they wanted to hoist that cup and win the conference championship.
And number three, they're at home in front of a sold out whiteout crowd, so it did mean a little bit something extra. I'm sure that helped.
Boom, shame on me, but no, and it was a fantastic game. And hats off to Rico Blasi and the St. Thomas program. Are they ever going to be good? They're getting in their beautiful new building in the fall. So it's, all good. 1 hour in the books, but man, do we have a lot of show coming your way. Look at that guy across the table from you. Who's Finally, we get him in studio.
Yeah. Last time
I can be quiet. It's all him now.
Last time we had him in studio was maybe almost a year to the day, practically. We were talking Frozen 4 last year when it was here.
That's right.
And now he's back in the friendly confines of XL Energy Center. He's going to take in a doubleheader. We're talking about Brad Schlossman in town to talk a little college hockey, and we're going to do so for a full hour next on Beyond the Pond. Rolling forward, we've got Beyond the Pond going up until 12:45, and then we'll drop the puck at 1:08. Wild hosting the Buffalo Sabres. As mentioned, we got Russo Radio joining us at noon. He'll be in studio for better part of a half hour. Later on this hour, we'll get a quick youth hockey update from Tony Scott and Youth Hockey Hub. He's got some good stuff, including some breaking news from the high school ranks, including some coaches that are resigning and some other good stuff. So, but what we've got now is a whole lot of college hockey talk with our buddy Brad Schlossman. You want to get involved? We'd love to have you. 800-320-5326. You can also text us 64686. Patrick, what do you think here? We got the Schloss in town. This is like hockey royalty in the building.
It really is. I just want to sit and listen to him because he's got all the answers, right?
He does. He's always got the answers.
And I say that seriously, but help us through this pairwise and where's everybody going to end up? Because I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I think we've
we're down to almost there's 2 teams.
Left. So we're trying to figure out the number 16 overall seed will be the Atlantic Hockey winner.
Okay.
And that team, I'm pretty confident, will be sent to play Boston College.
Yep. That's pretty much a given.
Yep. And then Michigan State will be the 2, and I think the 15, which will be the ECAC champion, either Cornell or Clarkson. And I think that team ends up playing Michigan State in Toledo. And then Maine is looking at a matchup against Penn State in Allentown.
No, let me ask you that one.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, so if they were 3, right, they'll be the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And 14 will be Minnesota State.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Why wouldn't those 2 play? Because of just the logistics of everything?
Because I think they're going to
So we don't, because, do we ever get to the point where, you throw logistics out the window or not?
I think they send as Minnesota State being a 4 seed as well, I think they flip those 2 and send Minnesota State to Fargo because it's a driving trip. And I think Minnesota State will play either Minnesota or Western Michigan in the first round. And because they're a 4, today's game, Western Michigan against Denver will determine the 1 seed. If Western wins, then Western's a 1 seed, and I think they likely play Minnesota State and Fargo.
Oh, okay.
If Denver wins, Minnesota's a 1 seed, and I think you might see a Minnesota versus Minnesota State matchup in Fargo, and Western would be the 2 seed in Fargo. So just those are my guesses. We'll find out tomorrow if I'm right.
And then the 3 seed would probably be a team from OD.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Probably,
there's so many.
Probably a UMass, right?
I think that's who I penciled in last night. I'd have to go.
Well, if you penciled it, I think you penned it in.
So from a Gopher perspective then, Patrick, Brett Blakemore did this with the Wild and their playoff hopes. From a Gopher perspective, are you rooting for DU tonight or are you rooting for Western Michigan?
No, because
doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't matter. Minnesota's got to worry about their game and getting their game, to where they want it to be. As Schloss mentioned, 20 days off.
Yep.
It's hard you cannot just, you can't emulate that, right? You can't, because it's different when you're actually playing a game or, scrimmaging against your team or skating or whatever. So, I think the first 10 minutes of that first period will tell a lot about where Minnesota's at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
How are they health-wise? We don't know Aaron Hughlin, but everything else, I would have to think they've had an opportunity to heal their bumps and bruises.
I've purposely stayed away, but for all I know, it's Aaron Hughlin, which is really too bad. I feel just horrible about him and his season-ending injury. But I think for the most part they're relatively healthy.
All right, let's get to some of these questions. I mentioned to Brad off air, a lot of folks on the text line, 64686.
Is this North Dakota fan line?
Are asking about Dave Haxtell and...
Which is... Okay, go ahead.
Because chances are he's not coming back to the college ranks.
Zero.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think he's... I think he's more likely to get an NHL job.
Yes.
I think he was. Who knows what teams are thinking? But this is a guy who was a Jack Adams finalist 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And look what's happened to Seattle since he left. I mean, that's people got to be looking around and saying Dave Haxtell took this team within 1 game of the Western Conference Finals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, holy cow. That's a impressive coaching job.
And why wouldn't the fans up there, salivate over Dave Haxtell, right?
Right.
I mean, for sure. But I think that
he's a great coach, of course.
I think that ship has sailed.
Okay.
I think he is his mind and everything is pro hockey now.
On the other border, this one from a Mavericks fan. How are things for Mike Hastings and the Wisconsin Badgers these days?
Yeah, I mean, they had a disappointing year
really
this year.
Disappointing.
It was incredible. I didn't realize this until Todd Miloweski tweeted this. That was his first losing season in 27 years of coaching hockey.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So Wisconsin will be retooling the roster a little bit. And it'll be interesting to see how they put that roster back together next year. And I think Quinn Finley already said he's coming back.
Yes.
That's a huge get for Wisconsin.
Really good player.
Yeah.
Really good player. And, I think Mike Hastings is just fine.
And how about from Scott in Minneapolis, your take on the CHL Major Junior NCAA situation? How's this going to affect college hockey? Obviously, it's going to have an impact.
Already has, right?
Yeah.
20 guys? No. You correct me. I think 20 guys have already committed.
Oh, way more than that.
Way more than that.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
It'll be interesting to see how those players do in college hockey. I think one of the misconceptions is that
they're all studs.
Yes. And they're not.
No.
The USHL is a harder league than the WHL.
That's what I've heard also.
So if you think you're getting a point per game guy from the CHL and that he's going to equal a point per game guy in the USHL, not true. So it'll be fascinating to see exactly how these players mix in, and because some teams are going really heavy on them. And other teams aren't.
And let's not forget, some of these guys are overage.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And they're not the first round, second round, third round draft picks.
Yep.
Now, will we maybe see some of them make the move? Maybe.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
But we're not talking, the high enders.
So the CHL kind of has some of the really high-end guys. And those are going to be the guys that all the big schools are on. But like some of the bottom of the lineup there, those guys can't play at the D1 level.
Yeah.
And you see some of these players go play for Canadian colleges there. And when they come down to the U.S., like the UND plays Manitoba every year, they can't play at that level.
Play. No.
So not everyone can.
It's a blowout.
Yeah, not everyone can play at that level. There are some very special players up there, and those are the guys I think we're going to see how many of those guys come down. Like, is Gavin McKenna going to play college hockey next year? I think that's one of the big questions everyone's watching and
who
wondering
knows who Gavin
about.
McKenna is? I really don't. Right?
He's going to be a number 1 overall draft pick in a couple of years. He plays for Medicine Hat in the WHL. He's going to be, if he comes, he'll be a Macklin Celebrini style superstar who might win the Hobie as a 17-year-old, and then he'll be in the NHL. Yeah. So there are some really big difference makers. I think the next tier of players, that's who I'm curious to see how good they are.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's squeeze in a break. We're at the bottom of the hour. More Brad Schlossman when we continue, plus Tony Scott from the Youth Hockey Hub as we roll forward in hour 2 of Beyond the Pond. Tony Scott from the Youth Hockey Hub joining us in roughly 5-10 minutes. We'll get a quick update on what's going on in the world of youth hockey. Right now, we're concentrated on everything going on in the world of college hockey. Brad, I've had this conversation with Pat Micheletti the last couple of weeks because I don't fully understand it. Augustana is available for the NCAA tournament. St. Thomas is not. Explain to me why.
Okay, so St. Thomas is reclassifying. It's a Division III reclassification. Division III, this is really stupid. Let me preface with saying this. This is going to sound really stupid to everyone, and you're right. So Division III sponsors a NCAA tournament, and they're reclassifying from that. Augustana is a Division II school that does not sponsor an NCAA tournament, so Augustana is okay.
I thought it was, so I was wrong. I thought it was because they went Division I in all sports, and Augustana, like Minnesota State, only went Division I in one sport. But that's not the case.
It's because the
that?
level they were at doesn't sponsor a tournament, so they couldn't have a tournament.
Way.
Yeah,
I was wrong.
So it would have been if Augie and St. Thomas, like St. Thomas had to be looking over there saying this is the dumbest
100%.
thing ever.
Anyone with eyeballs would be saying that.
It is, and it is right. But I guess Augie didn't make it. St. Thomas now is eligible next year. But yes, not,
weird stuff.
NCAA.
Yeah, that's too bad. From the text line, the 952 area code with the NCAA brackets pretty much determined. Can Schloss give us his prediction for his Frozen Four teams?
I was just going to ask that. I'm glad I didn't have to ask.
Text it in at 64686.
Come on.
Okay, fine.
I'm sure you're changing them from the beginning of the year when I ask you every year.
You know what? I'm curious. I should bring up my preseason rankings and go through them. I know I had BU number one. Sorry. BC.
Yes.
I had BC number one. I had BU last year. So I had BC number one, and then I think I had Michigan State and Minnesota 2 and 3.
Yep.
And so I could have. So my top 3 could all be number 1 seeds, and maybe did I have Denver 4?
I think maybe North Dakota.
No, I didn't have them 4.
Are you sure?
Let's maybe I'll Google it here while we're talking. But I got to stick with BC because I picked them preseason.
Yep.
Why change now?
Good for you.
I got to stick with Michigan.
Man of your word.
Michigan State. I think that both BC and Michigan State, not only are they good teams, but they have difference makers in net. You have Fowler
and Augustine.
Yeah. Augustine's been great in the big stage at World Juniors, winning titles. Fowler, kind of carried Youngstown to a Clark Cup in the USHL. These guys have been good on big stages.
We've talked about teams that have stumbled, and BC, has stumbled.
Yep.
They've lost some games where
they have,
head scratchers. Why?
Yeah, the one thing also I kind of keep in the back of my mind or try to about this is when you go to the NCAA tournament, those TV timeouts are much longer than they are in the regular season. So if you have a really big, dominant top line, you can roll those guys all the time. So you are going to see Leonard and Perreault over and over and over again when BC plays. I think back to the team I cover in North Dakota when they won that 2016 title. Brad Berry threw out Drake Kajula, Brock Besser, and Nick Schmaltz line quite a bit, and they dominated. So you can use your top players a little more. Maybe it cuts out that fourth line a little bit more, which that some teams that benefits. And I think when you look at BC and they have those couple really, really special players, that helps them.
Is that your pick to win it all?
I got to stick with it. It was my preseason pick. No,
you picked them to win it all.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. Grand Forks Herald preseason.
Why didn't you do this? You Google that, figure out who your preseason picks were. Real quick, let's squeeze in a conversation here with Tony Scott at the Youth Hockey Hub. We got an update here on all things going on. We've been talking a lot of college. Coming up in the next hour, as we go up to Face-Off, we'll get into the National Hockey League and the Minnesota Wild with Michael Russo. But real quick, on the youth hockey scene, Tony, good morning. Welcome to Beyond the Pond. Pat Micheletti. Meet Brad Schlossman. I'm Kevin Fallness. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I know Brad well. I did a podcast with him back in the COVID era.
Of course you did.
And run into him at rinks once in a while. Yeah, he is the Bob McKenzie of college hockey.
See?
Yeah, look at it's well known. We didn't even have to tell Tony. He knew. I'm
going off script here for a second, Tony. I got word that St. Louis Park is going to Class A this upcoming season. Did you know that? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I did. A few schools have gotten the go-down ruling from the MSHSL, including St. Louis Park. That's great. That'll be great for their program. I hope there's a few more that can get from AA to A, because they obviously, when they lace up the skates at the beginning of there's a lot of teams in that what I call the middle class who just don't have the program or the youth programs to support a AA team.
Anyone going the opposite direction, going up to AA?
Not yet. But there's a few I'd like to see go up. One in the 218 St. Louis County, but I won't name names.
You don't need to. Youth state tournaments, they wrapped up last weekend. How'd everything go down?
It was kind of odd. 7 of our top 10, our number 1 teams in the state, won state on Sunday. And one of the most exciting ones was Minnetonka, was in Moorhead, their PBAA team. There's this kid, write his name down now, Brad Schlossman, Colton Nash from Minnetonka. He's a special player. He had the game winner in overtime for the Skippers. And one more Bantam AA note, the Bantam AA Spuds, Moorhead won. That's the first time a Bantam AA team has won. Bantam AA, an association or school has won Bantam AA and high school in the same year, and that was Edina in 2013.
Outstanding. I saw a bunch of kids got invited to try out for the National Team Development Program. What do you got on those?
So 11 of them got invited, maybe even a 12th. I'm not sure. The Luke Christofferson, you talked a little bit about the CHL. He turned down his invite from Two Rivers High School and accepted a tender from the Portland Winterhawks in the WHL earlier this week. But yeah, so 11 kids got invited. 6 of them played high school. One of them played Bantams on that Bantam AA team, Beck Thorson, for Moorhead. And then a few other kids are playing Tier 1 hockey in Tier 1 USA.
Anyone missing that you thought would be on that list?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because a kid from Hibbing named Cole Swanson should have been invited. Another kid from Edina who did quite well, freshman Becker Winkus. I thought those two kids were left off and really earned their way to an invite.
Let's keep them. Let's keep them here. Let's keep them here.
Well, that's all interesting information. I know in watching the state tournament last week, there was talk about Mike Randolph stepping down. Did that come to fruition, and any other high school resignations come popping up?
Yeah, Rand stepped down. I talked to him a lot this week. I was trying to get some juice from him, for the show today, and he's like, you know what? The drive between where I live in Duluth and Aitkin and Breezy Point, it's just not a great drive. It's just not a great setup for him to be there long term. He didn't want to be there 2-3 years and set some things up. So he resigned. He definitely wants to coach. In 1 hour, he and I did some discovery and all the different opportunities that might come up. So don't be surprised to see Mike Randolph behind a bench next year.
Yeah, okay. Well, good stuff. What's going on the Youth Hockey Hub scene? If we go to youthhockeyhub.com or check out your Twitter, what are we going to find this week?
So this weekend, just like Schloss, we were at the NCHC last night. We'll be there again tonight. We were at the NCAA Frozen Four over at Ritter. We were down in Mankato last night for the Mason Cup Championship.
Well, thanks for saying hi. Thanks for saying hi.
Stars of tomorrow.
You didn't go up and say hi to Pat Micheletti during your trip to Mankato?
I was not there. One of our photographers.
Okay,
I would have
right.
for sure.
Okay.
I would have for sure.
Better.
I was running a tournament. We have a tournament in Eden Prairie and Shakopee. A lot of big names there in the 48 teams. It's a lot of fun to run these year-end all-star tournaments.
Awesome stuff. As always, Tony, thanks for joining us, and I'm sure we'll catch up again next week.
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Yep.
He's our buddy, Tony Scott, Youth Hockey Hub. Find him online, youthhockeyhub.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Youth Hockey Hub. Back to the questions here, getting back to college hockey. Again, top of the hour, we're going to get into the Wild. We'll set the stage for the Wild and Sabres coming up here. A 108 puck drop from XL Energy Center. Got this one from the 612 area code, Schloss and Pat Micheletti. Please ask about NCHC CCHA realignment. Move Mankato, Bemidji State, St. Thomas to NCHC. With Western Michigan, Miami, and maybe Omaha to the CCHA. Could that ever happen and get things back in order here in Minnesota?
Well, I don't think anything like that will happen. Again, if we were smart and we didn't have egos, we would be more regionalized, and it would be better, and it would be better for all the participating schools, and we would fill arenas every night, and the list goes on and on and on why it should happen. I don't think it will happen for a while. That's my sense.
You're right. It's I never say never on anything because things change the way you never envisioned them to. However, there is nothing remotely close to on the table to have something like that happen right now.
From the 763 area code, as a St. Cloud State fan and alumni, should I be concerned about the future of D1 hockey for the Huskies in light of the drop-off in recruiting, an aging arena, and financial state of the university?
St. Cloud State has a lot of challenges structurally, I will say that, with the amount of money the school has, with the school's enrollment dropping, facilities, all those things. Brett Larson has challenges, significant challenges. I think he's done a phenomenal job there. And I think if you're St. Cloud State, you got to try to keep Brett Larson there because he does have major challenges that are, he doesn't have the money other schools have. Let's just say, it doesn't have the facilities some other schools have. It is aging. So he's having to, punch above his weight class to try to compete with all these other schools that they have competed for a while. So, yeah, I mean, it is a huge challenge. And, Yeah, and now you've got this is people don't know. The general public doesn't know what's going on right now behind the scenes. You have a bad season, all these teams are throwing money at their players.
Yeah.
So St. Cloud State, Brett Larson is sitting there right now, and he has all these schools with a lot of more money trying to get his players to go in the portal, and he is going to lose guys in the portal, and that's the challenge that every team is facing. You're going to see guys jump in this year, and it's going to be a surprise to some people, but that is what's happening. Like what's happened in college basketball and college football is trickling down to college hockey right now.
It was just a matter of time.
And it's, so that's a huge challenge that St. Cloud State's facing right now.
Here's one from Todd and Osseo, not happy with Pat Micheletti's Golden Gophers. How do they lose in the first round of the Big Ten playoffs? That should never happen for this Golden Gopher hockey team. How'd they fall apart against Notre Dame? And what do you think about their future going forward in the NCAA tournament? We'll start with you, Patrick.
Well, anything I say is going to be misconstrued, Kevin. So I will say this. You look at Notre Dame during the season, they did not have a good season. They played very, very well in the playoffs. I thought Minnesota played well in that series, other than, the first night, unfortunately, Soulier gave up 2 tough ones, one right in the first minute of the game. That kind of hurt him, and then another miscue. But for the most part, they played pretty well in the series. Unfortunately, they did not win. It's going to be it's a challenge with 20 days off. We're going to find out next week.
What's your view there, Brad?
There are a lot of really good college hockey teams. I hear that all the time. I think fans think teams should be able to just walk into 25-win seasons.
And hard.
Like Notre Dame had a tough season. I go and look at their roster. You're looking at, you have Danny Nelson, you have Cole Knuble, you have great goaltending, a veteran decor. Beyond, it's like, guy. Okay, this is a really talented hockey team. That's the part of this day and age in college hockey. There are a lot of really good teams.
Yeah, look at Penn State, 0-9 to start the conference season, and now
they get hot.
They are one of the hottest teams in college hockey, and that no one wants to play next weekend.
Yeah, we're watching. Hey, look at the NCHC. You've got 2 teams going to the tournament in that league.
2.
Arizona State is a really good hockey team.
Yeah,
North Dakota is a good hockey team. So it's not easy hard in college hockey these days. So how does Minnesota go into the tournament? I think after the tournament, we all love looking back, right? So we're either going to say that 2-week break is what killed them. And if they go to the Frozen Four, we're all going to say that 2-week break got them healthy. And, that's our storyline.
And I will tell you, teams do show up. They do try.
Yeah.
It's not like, Notre Dame, we're just going to, waltz through them. They're hard. They're hard games. And both teams played hard.
Yeah.
One team came out on top, and that's how I look at it.
So as we know it, give me the setup for tomorrow. When do we find out the brackets? How do we find out the 16 fields, where they're going, the regionals, all that good stuff?
ESPN tomorrow, right?
Yeah, you go to GrandForksHerald.com and you check. No, I'm just kidding. It's on. I think it's
try
2
to get on the Grand Forks Herald, but they want to charge me so much.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. They pay your salary.
So you're going to be here all day. I know that. You're going to watch the Wild and Sabres.
Yep.
Any North Dakota connections in either of the
I haven't seen if Jacob Bernard-Docker's playing. He just got traded from Ottawa. So kind of funny. I was here over Christmas. I saw you over Christmas, and Jacob Bernard-Docker was there that day, and now all of a sudden I'm back here, and Bernard Docker's back here in the X again. So we'll see if I haven't seen the lineups yet, but so I'll watch that. Tonight's game is just kind of a farewell to hockey in the Twin Cities, and
so if I call you tomorrow, answer the phone. Okay?
I'll be there.
One click and answer.
If
it's me. If I'm looking for information,
I'll try to give you info unless I'm hanging out with my Iron Ranger mother down here, and she may say, "Don't answer that."
I think she likes me more. She likes you, right?
You're an Iron Ranger. You're high in her books, so
of course.
They stick together.
Yes, we do.
Do the regions start right away next weekend?
Yes.
So you'll be busy next weekend.
Yeah. So Thursday is Fargo's a Thursday Saturday regional.
Yep.
I'll be there.
So I'll see you next weekend.
I'll see you. Yeah, we'll be
you got to come on
hanging
the show
out.
next Saturday.
That's right. It should be a good regional.
Yep.
Then Friday, Sunday are a couple of the other ones. So lots of hockey to watch next weekend. We'll see who makes St. Louis this year. Pat and I were talking. Who knows? It's an open year.
It's really open.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see a 4 seed easily get there.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I think so.
In a region.
Yes. Yeah. Some of these teams are coming in hot. You said Penn State's one of the hottest teams in the country.
Who wants to play them next week?
Yeah. I mean, and they're going to be playing at home.
And they're hosting.
That's another story.
They're hosting in Allentown.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe if I get my way in a few years, that game will be hosted by Maine in Alfond Arena instead of the 1 seed going to play a 4 seed on the road, which makes no sense.
Exactly.
But we will need another 2-hour show for us to get through that.
I can't wait till the two of you are the two-headed monster as the commissioner of college hockey. That day is coming very soon, and you can make all things right in the world. Schloss, thanks for the last hour. This was fantastic. Always great to have you on the show, especially great to have you in studio and where we can have these conversations face-to-face. My guess is this is not the last we've heard of you this season, so we'll be in touch here very soon.
Great. Awesome. That was fun to chat with you guys. Have a good one.
That is the voice of Brad Schlossman. We'll break, and then we've got another 45 minutes to go. Puck doesn't drop until 1:08, and we've got Michael Russo of The Athletic and TheAthletic.com coming up next on The Fan. Spent the last hour talking a lot of college hockey. Now we'll flip the page here as we wrap up Beyond the Pond, the final 45 minutes as we make our way towards the Wild and Sabres. We'll get into the National Hockey League and the Minnesota Wild with our good, close, personal friend, Michael Russo of The Athletic and TheAthletic.com.
Well,
How we doing,
you
Michael?
finally have him on.
What do you mean?
Like in studio.
I've been avoiding him?
Well, usually it's like 10 minutes and don't kick him out.
No,
what's the problem?
Basically, he gives us one answer and then it's out because it's about a 20-minute run-on sentence.
Oh, good.
But it's always good to have him in studio.
Yeah, perfect.
What do you know, Michael?
How is Schlossman? Isn't he the best college hockey writer there is?
He's the Bob McKenzie of college hockey.
Yeah. No, he's unreal.
And he knows everything, and he talks to everybody. He's like you. Yeah. You know?
I remember listening. I think it was you guys were doing an interview earlier this season, or maybe last year at this time, with Rico Blasi, and Rico. It was about the portal, and Rico was like, he said, like, I basically just read what Brad Schlossman's putting out there.
Yeah.
So that always tells me that when you're respected when a coach from another market basically says that. So
yeah, he's so dialed in, and we get great stuff from him.
Yeah, we just spent, like I said, the last hour talking a lot of college hockey. Now we'll flip the page to the NHL and the Minnesota Wild. If you want to get involved in that conversation, we got Russo here for about 45 minutes. You can text us 64686 if you feel like it. You can also call us 800-320-5326. Michael, reading your stuff at The Athletic and TheAthletic.com a week ago today, maybe after the game against the St. Louis Blues, the sky was falling, everything was falling apart. How are you feeling now, 7 days later?
Well, I'll tell you in about 3 hours, right? I mean, I was just talking, I don't know. I was just talking with Ryan Carter, like, is there a harder week in hockey this season by any team than what the Wild have coming up with a road home back-to-back with Dallas, Vegas, and then the Caps coming into town feeling great about themselves, and then a home with the Devils. So this is a big 2 points that they got to get. The teams behind them just never seem to lose right now. And it was so crazy Thursday night. Calgary wins. Utah wins against Buffalo, and Buffalo, Tage throws the puck in his own net on a delayed penalty.
Right. Yep.
And then at least then you're like, all right, well, the Blues are going to get 2 points and Vancouver's going to get none. And then our old buddy Brock Besser scored an unbelievable goal with 2 seconds left to force overtime and get them a point. So it just doesn't get any easier. So you just can't keep your foot off the gas. But to your point, Kevin, the last 2 games have been extremely impressive. Obviously, the way they came out with their foot on the gas against Seattle, doing exactly what Jake Middleton said the game before, which was, start to be proactive rather than reactive. And then the game against a very good LA team and grinding that out, rallying back to win. in regulation.
That was impressive,
Very
especially
impressive.
considering how they came out of that game on Saturday against the Kings team that, I don't care what anyone says, they're going to be a monster in that Pacific Division and the Western Conference. That's a big, heavy, talented team. And if they get goaltending, they're going to be a tough team to contend with. And for the Wild to take care of them, considering the way they were down 1-0 in that hockey game as well. For a team that's struggling for goals, they figured out a way to get it done. That was a huge, impressive victory.
Yeah. To your point.
Well, I was talking to Twitterless Joe when he was in town, and after the game, and he says,
"You know what? Alex Micheletti on Twitter makes up for Twitterless Joe."
Yeah, he does.
My God, does he?
He does. Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, I will continue. But I said, well, Joe, give me your perspective of the Minnesota Wild, and he said, you know what? They don't score a lot, and for obvious reasons, they have Kaprizov out, and they're not a high octane offense. That being said, so you know what? No matter what, even in their losses, for the majority of the time, this team works hard all the time.
Yeah,
all the time. And he might be comparing it to the team that he covers on a nightly basis.
Oh my God!
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, which has been a nightmare.
Yeah.
But, that's what I kind of took away. The resiliency of Minnesota with a number of key guys out at different times, whether it be their 3D or whether it be, the forwards that they have out now. They just seem to, they stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was what was so concerning to me about the St. Louis game is that they did not play that way. Their work ethic, they finally seemed tired.
Yep.
And, every single night right now with these guys out of the lineup, they've just got to put in such, no margin for error, and they got to just exude so much energy, and they got to play such a hard branded defensive hockey to win that eventually I think it just catches up to you. And that's why they've had so many, not only days off lately, but even on, usually the way the pattern is that if you take a game off, a practice day off, the next day is a mandatory, morning skate. And lately they are having mandatory optional morning skates where they are telling guys that they can't even go on the ice after not practicing the day before. And that's because of the amount of heavy workload that these guys are getting lately. So, it has been impressive that the way that they worked. They're going to get, I hope, for themselves a huge boost tonight by just getting Johansson and Brodin, especially back in the lineup. Rossi looks like he escaped harm's way with that shot that he took to the knee. And then, you're just waiting for Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov and these guys and praying that nobody else gets hurt because as we know, I mean, they just, that's why they're keeping Liam Ogren here. Like, Liam Ogren can't play today.
Yeah.
He's not allowed because he's here on emergency basis for those other guys. But, the way that they lose guys, they're just like, why even send them down until they see that they get out of this alive?
Yeah, we talk a lot about the playoffs and matchups and this, that, and the other thing. And, and Kevin and I were chatting earlier about the fact that, we always find out at the end of the playoffs, this guy needs, surgery. That guy's hurt. He was playing with this, that, and the other thing. Isn't the biggest thing going into the playoffs the health of a team?
Absolutely. And, that's why you're hoping for Eriksson Ek. That's why they're really, keeping Marcus out right now. Marcus played with this injury for a while, and gutted through it, but it finally got to the point where they had to just pull him out and try to get him healthy because the playoffs are so important. And Marcus Foligno's had a really quality year, especially defensively. Unfortunately for the Wild, we've seen this story before where they just don't seem to go into the playoffs healthy. I still remember 2018 was just beyond belief. They lose Ryan Suter with 5 games left in the season. Jared Spurgeon's playing on essentially a torn hamstring or something. It was, he should not have been in that lineup. They lose Parisi in that lineup, I think, with in that series he got sandwiched with 2 minutes left in the game by Sherratt and somebody broke his collarbone.
Yep.
So you just hope that this year that you get Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov back, get them some games and get them playing well.
What does I don't think anybody knows, and maybe you know, I would have to assume you would say if you knew, what are you hearing about 97? What are you hearing about 14? Those are the big question marks from Wild Nation all across the state of hockey.
I get the impression that Kaprizov at least is going to skate later this week, this upcoming week coming up. There were some talk that maybe he has already been on the ice, at least around the trade deadline, which is why I was so so pushing on Billy about the LTIR situation at the trade deadline. What I was told was that he visited a surgeon in New York and essentially was told you can't go on the ice until later this month for the first time. And then you do the math and you realize with the playoffs starting April 19th, if he comes back, it's probably going to be with a couple games back later. So do you hold him out or do you hold Eriksson Ek out? Or do you make a move and essentially assume that somebody else is going to be on season-ending LTIR? The way this season has gone, I mean, honestly, when I saw Rossi go down the other day, I'm like, holy smokes, But so I do think that light's at the end of the tunnel here and that we're going to see Kaprizov back at some point. But again, he's got to get on the ice, see how he's feeling. It's been a long time since he's played hockey, only 3 games since before Christmas. And we know that he has a certain standard that he feels he has to be at. And that's why he had the surgery. Like, this is something the surgery that he had is something that a lot of guys can gut through for the rest of the year, but he's a different animal. Yeah. And that's why he's top exactly. And he just, and now looking back, like with the news that came out at the end of January that he was having surgery, like when the last game, that he played in Chicago, and we were interviewing Matt Zuccarello next to him, and Matt was cracking these jokes, and looking back on it, like Kaprizov wasn't smiling, wasn't laughing. Even when he went to the trainer's room that night, he just looked like in hindsight. He looked glum. Yeah. And I think that he realized that was it.
What do you know? Because of social media, I know you were at XL Energy Center yesterday and last night. What'd you see? We had David Carle on earlier. What'd you see from Zeev Buyum?
Well, they played a really good defensive type of game. I thought they were a little lackadaisical the first 2 periods, and no more than that goal that they gave up with, in the final seconds of the second period. But they defended really hard against an Arizona State team that's really good. They got some horses. It was fun catching up with Mike Sillinger. Silly, is what we used to call him in Florida, Kevin. Silly.
Was he part of the rat trick?
No, he wasn't. He came after.
Check your Twitter.
But I was actually sitting next to him. I was sitting next to him when he was traded out of Florida. So I got the. I just turned to him like, I know you're a little shell-shocked here, but can I get a quote?
Mike was in Florida, right? You know that.
Yes,
okay.
But Zeev last night, I think, tried to do too much. I don't know if you watched the game, Pat.
I didn't know.
He looked like he was trying to do too much, and I don't know if it's because he knew the entire Wild Brass were watching or what it was. But at least the first 2 periods, I didn't think that he played overly great. But he defended hard. And obviously, we're going to see him very, very soon in this lineup. The question is when. Do they lose early in the NCAAs, or if they go to the Frozen Four, the Wild will only have 1 game after that.
Yeah, and that's the question I had for you then. If you look at Minnesota's decor throughout the year, they've been pretty good.
Yeah.
And that correlates with how Gustafsson plays and, all that kind of stuff, and Fleury. That being said, Billy typically is a guy that likes to, nurture, bring these guys along, other than a Brock Faber like we saw. Mm-hmm. Do you think Zeev will be one of those guys? I mean,
they are burning the year. Whether it's one game, whether it's one game or not, he will be here. The question is, does he play?
Yeah, that's the question I have.
So, let's just say they lose next weekend and they sign him pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If they are in a playoff meat grinder, he's not getting in the lineup right away. There's just no way.
Right.
He's not. I mean, we're seeing that. Chisholm's just played second pair defense for 3-4 weeks here, and he's out of the lineup today because they love what John Merrill and Zach Bogosian are bringing. Yeah. So obviously, if Brodin and Middleton are healthy, if they are already feeling like they're keeping John Merrill in, John's playing in the playoffs, and John's going to play down the stretch. Now, if they get their playoff spot or positioning locked, then maybe we'd see Zeev get in a couple of games.
Some guys
and certainly, I would assume that game against Anaheim, which would be awesome if that was his debut, is essentially a hometown team.
Oh, that's true.
That final game of the regular season. But I don't think this is. If they are healthy, I do not think this is going to be like Faber in that Dallas series.
Yep.
Now, similarly, when Faber left the Frozen Four with the Gophers and he played those final 2 games, I think at Chicago and Nashville.
Yep.
He was so good, they never thought he was going to play in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But really, I just don't see how he gets in the playoffs unless it's like all of a sudden they're down in the series and you want to get some sort of spark.
Yeah.
So I just don't think this is going to be the same thing. And, again, it's hard for if they are fighting for their playoff lives here, it's hard for the management to go to the coaching staff and say, hey, I know you trust these 2 defensemen or this one defenseman, but put him, take him out for our 19-year-old prospect. That's just it's not the time to do it. I'm already getting ready for the, like somebody asked me a joke the other day, now that Juracek's sent down, like, what's the next thing you're going to be annoyed about? And, like, this is clearly going to be the next thing. I mean, it is just going to every day when he is not in line rushes, it's going to be just
put him in. The Brett Blakemores of the world.
Exactly. By the way, did Brett happen to tell Hartsey how big of a fan he was when he called him up for the interview today?
How did that off-air conversation go, Brett?
Short and sweet and to the point.
Hello, Mr. Hartman. I'll get you right on, sir.
That's right. Boy. I have a question outside of the Wild, which I've been reading up, but I don't know anything about. The possibility of expansion.
Yeah.
And Houston being one, maybe Atlanta for the 3rd time. Mm-hmm. What do you know about that?
Yeah, I mean, I did that agent poll about 2-3 weeks ago, and Houston was by far the runaway favorite for the 2 expansion teams that everybody picked, and it was because of this billionaire owner that they feel committed. It would be obviously an immediate natural rivalry with Dallas. I think the biggest thing that I'll be curious is both need sort of new buildings.
New buildings, yep.
When does that get built? And if one's before the other, does one come in? Like, do they do this like Vegas and Seattle where they don't come in the same year? That could be something.
Mm-hmm.
And remember when the Wild came in, they were part of that 4-team expansion with Nashville, Atlanta, and Columbus. Columbus and Minnesota were the only 2 that came in together, but the other 2 came in the years before.
Yep.
But expansion's coming. I mean, when you're talking $1.5-2 billion expansion fees,
is that the fee now? What originally,
it's funny. Originally they were saying 1.2, but then the way it works is like Tampa just sold for 1.8.
Yeah.
So you can't all of a sudden now kind of have an expansion team and say just a $1.2 billion expansion fee. At least that's the rationale. Now, can they get it? I mean, this guy's a billionaire, this Houston owner. They have a couple groups in Atlanta. One sort of led by one that's like almost, I think Kevin Weeks is fronting, and the other that Anson Carter's fronting. So maybe one of those two are whoever's coming in. Whichever group sort of quasi wins is one going to wind up being the president of the team potentially between Anson and Kevin. So. But I don't know. I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people that actually want them to go back to Atlanta.
Yeah, maybe so. And then, but my question is: are we beating a dead horse with Atlanta or not? Or did
that's the thing.
Did they screw up in terms of their marketing?
That Spirit ownership down there was like the worst ownership in like pro sports history. So I think that they were doomed from the moment that they got that the new Atlanta Thrashers came in.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the Atlanta Flames was, obviously that was sort of before my time, even though it was kind of alive.
Tom Lice,
I mean,
Phil Muir. Phil Muir?
Absolutely. And it was another poor ownership. So Atlanta, they put it in, downtown people, like where they're putting this place is actually north of even where the Braves are now. So, they're talking like the Alpharetta area. Obviously a lot of money up there. I think it'll be interesting, landing at the Atlanta airport and trekking up there because of the traffic situation for all these teams and everybody that comes in there. That's the only thing is Alpharetta is way north of the airport, and Atlanta traffic is nothing to be.
Are there other cities besides those two that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they eventually want to go. Well, I think I think where they'd love to eventually go back to is Arizona. But the question is, when do you build an arena there? Who's the owner? All that stuff. Like the league wants to get back there, but Houston's coming.
Yeah.
And Atlanta's probably coming.
What about Hamilton? I've always heard of the possibility of having another team. They want
a lot of people want 2 teams in Toronto.
They could do that, right?
They could. I mean, theoretically, I don't think it's going to all of a sudden take away from people becoming Maple Leafs season ticket holders.
Right.
Yeah.
Might hurt the Sabres though.
Oh, kill the Sabres.
Yeah.
Right. And
so that's the one thing. The other hopefully we're not, nobody listens to us in Winnipeg. But I think there's a lot of talk out there that you have 2 expansion teams and then maybe an eventual, when Arizona gets its act together, another relocation.
Come on.
And it, honestly, I mean, Winnipeg right now with everything up there from the financials to the fact that they can't even sell out the smallest arena in the league to, things like that. There was a lot of talk that, the agents are at least talking. The league wants no part of this conversation. Yeah. But agents that I talked to for that agent poll are convinced that if they have 2 expansion teams before Arizona gets its act together and they find an owner and a building and all that if 7-8 years from now, Winnipeg still is a market
they only seat 15,000.
Exactly.
Right?
And the corporate, it's not big up there and all that type of stuff. So it wouldn't be something if Winnipeg eventually moved back to Arizona. This is going to get aggregated, and it's going to be a major problem. And we'll just blame Fallness.
No, don't blame me. Let's blame Brett and his breakaways.
Well, even yesterday, I was aggravated. Apparently on Reddit, I was getting all these tweets that I said that 70% that there was a 70% chance that Marco Rossi's traded this summer, and I was repeating what Joe Smith said on his podcast.
Yeah,
if I had given my percentage, I probably would have said it was more.
Yeah. Here's a question from the 651 area code about Danila Yurov. What's the latest with him? Does he come over from the KHL this year? And what have you heard about his development?
Well, I mean, he's coming back from ankle surgery right now. I believe he's not back yet, but maybe he is. The playoffs are starting. They pushed the contracts back in the KHL back a month, so his contract ends end of May. So if the Wild are still alive, maybe. Wow. but my guess is that this is more just sign him after the season for next year.
What type of a player is he?
Yeah.
They think he's very dynamic. Obviously, his numbers have been down in the KHL this year. You don't know why that is. Sometimes it's because
Ustinov was dynamic.
Yeah. I don't know if they thought that because he really never scored there, but Yurov is supposed to be a star,
okay.
And that's what they're hoping. And I think they look at him more at center. I know that the Wild are extremely happy about him, and to Bill Guerin's, to what he was saying, his point, about the prices being outrageous at the deadline. It's like if you took the equivalent of what the Brock Nelson trade was to the Colorado Avalanche with the first-round pick in Callum Ritchie, that would be a first-round pick in Danila Yurov. Well, no Wild fan would want Bill Guerin to make that type of trade, especially for somebody that you might be able to sign this offseason anyway. But that, not that they have prospects that are totally untouchable, but I think Yurov is probably the closest to that with Wallstedt.
Have you booked all your travel for
Vegas?
Italy? No.
Oh, okay.
No, for Italy.
No, well, for next year, for the Olympics? Not yet.
But you are going.
Yeah, I'm covering the Olympics.
You're unbelievable.
So this summer in August, the NHL Media Tour Europe version is either going to be in Munich or Milan. So I might be in Milan twice in 6 months because I'll be back there for the Olympics. And then actually our Russo Lapanta trip next summer is supposed to go back to Milan, Como area. So it might be 3 times in a year that I'm in.
What a life. Yeah, I know. What a life you live. So. Just the world traveler. Good for you. For me, the best
Did you hear the shot I took at you and Halvey on Gord's podcast yesterday? On the Broken Sticks podcast? So we opened the show and he welcomed me to the show and I said, I knew you were getting around to me again when the last 2 guests were Fallness and Halverson.
Were they?
Micheletti hasn't been on there?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, you have?
Twice.
Well, all right. Well, then you just illustrated Russo's point. I get it. The best story of this season for me, Michael, when you talk about the Minnesota Wild, is Philip Gustafsson. I don't think many people thought coming into this year he was going to have an impact. It was going to be Jesper Wallstedt and probably Marc-Andre Fleury, and he was going to be the third wheel and be jettisoned for... Luckily, none of that came to be, because what a resurgent year it's been for him, for the most part, start to finish, but especially right now.
Other than that one stretch in January, he's been excellent, as consistent as can be. And that's why they're riding him right now. I know that, sentimental Wild fans and Marc-Andre Fleury fans want to see him get as many starts as he can before he wraps up his career here. And I'm sure Mark would love to be playing, but he gets it as well. I mean, my guess is actually Mark was probably going to start this game, but you have Gus coming off a shutout, and most coaches are going to ride the hot hand. Especially, again, this organization knows how important these 2 points are today, and you don't want to mess around when you have at Dallas, home Vegas, home Washington, home Jersey, at Jersey this week, and then as we just talked about Twitterless Joe. I mean, we know the Rangers aren't very good right now, but you're still going into Madison Square Garden against a Rangers team that's desperate, then an Islanders team that's desperate. It just doesn't get easier.
No.
So they really want to get these 2 points, and that's why they're going with him today. But to your point, he's been he's been quiet in net. That's the really most impressive thing about this stretch here. And tonight will be his sixth straight start, I believe.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, I'm not a goalie aficionado. So when I look at it,
you just used to get in their face and hack them.
Exactly.
Slash them.
But a lot of it for me is that this team is defending as a group of five,
right?
Better than they did a year ago too.
Yeah.
So sometimes, bad. Okay, a bad goal, right? But when you've been hung out to dry.
Yeah.
So I think it all intertwines, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're defending and you're not giving up high quality chances. And you better expect him to make the save.
And that's to Gus's to protect Gus and Fleury a little bit here. That was Bill Guerin's point coming into the season, is that even though we always threw these analytics out there that the Wild defended well enough to make their life easier, his point was always like when you have a laundry list of injuries the way that they have, and you don't trust the defenseman in front of you because it's always changing, that was a big reason why maybe Gustafsson and Fleury didn't have great numbers last year. And this year, what's been impressive is they've had the same number of injuries, if not worse.
Right. Yet they're top three at one time, right?
Yeah, and Gus is just playing superb right now. So it's really impressive to see.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll do one more before we hand it over to the Minnesota Wild Radio Network. Of course, the Wild in town tonight, wrapping up a 7-game homestand. They'll host the Buffalo Sabres. Puck will drop at 1:08. More Russo when we continue on Beyond the Pond. Good news for anybody that's coming down to XL Energy Center. We're going to listen to the Wild on the radio with Joe O'Donnell and Tom Reed coming up. Wild getting some pieces back in the lineup, including Jonas Brodin. Michael, I don't think it can be stated how important that is. Yes, you need 97. Yes, you need 14. But for what Jonas Brodin does for this team on the back end, good to see him back in the lineup.
Yeah, Brodin, Rossi, and Johansson all in warm-ups right now. So that's good news. Again, what that means, so fans don't freak out when they see me tweet line rushes here in a little bit, is that unless somebody gets hurt or sick in warm-ups, Liam Ogren cannot play.
Yep.
Just because he was on an emergency recall for Johansson the other day. They could have switched it to Rossi. If Rossi couldn't play, Rossi can play. So that means, I know Liam scored the other night and looked great, but that's just the way that their roster is right now. And they've used 3 of their 4 mandatory, non-emergency call-ups right now. So the only way Ogren would be able to play would be essentially to turn into a regular recall, which would be their 4th and final one, which would obviously be a little bit, risky with this many games left.
Yep.
All right, on a let's get negative. I don't want to get negative, but I think we need to talk about it. Is that the fact that 5-on-5, that they're having a hard time scoring goals, and they really have a hard time winning games when the top 3, Rossi, Boldy, and Zuccarello are not on the score sheet, right? Critical for their power play to I don't know, it's been better lately, right? But they got to continue to score on that, right? If they're going to win games.
Especially because this time of year, there's no power plays. I mean, power plays are way down year in the league. And we know in the playoffs. So 5-on-5 is integral. I think it'll help getting Brodin back. Yeah. I just think that Brodin does such a great job of getting them out of trouble in their own end and on transition. And I know that sometimes people don't, when they see the fact that he doesn't produce points, they think that he's not helping in that area. But I think he's so, he just has such an ability to get them out of trouble that I think it's only going to help. And then again, Johansson. You
gotta finish, man. You gotta
exactly.
You gotta execute.
Yeah. Goudreau's playing really well right now. Hartman's playing really well right now. So they're starting to, the cool part about some of these wins on this homestand is that they are doing it for the most part, other than last game, without Boldy and Rossi producing. Zuccarello's gotten some goals but you're right. I mean, 5-on-5 is something that they've got to start chipping in offensively.
I have been a Johansson apologist, just because I watch him play, and we've all seen. I mean, he skates beautifully. He handles the puck beautifully. He can shoot, but it's just so perimeter, and so it's frustrating at times to watch because you see that, and you ask yourself, where are the numbers?
Yeah, no, I totally am with you, and especially because he has been on the second line all season long, so he is. So
it's not
he
like
should be producing. I mean, historically, if you look at his numbers, he's just on par with what he is, and that's what's And what the reason why it's been a criticism this year is because they need him to produce because nobody else seems to be. But you're right. I mean, I will say since the Four Nations break, he's been one of their better forwards, and he is starting to chip in some points and things like that. Obviously, not having Eriksson Ek in the lineup hurts all that production. But they've really, the one thing I'll say about Johansson is that it's hard for me to be totally critical because remember when they re-signed him, I was all for it. Like I remember writing a column saying now's the time to do it because he had such great chemistry with Boldy and Eriksson Ek, and it just hasn't happened the last 2 years. And he's just, because there's so much skill and he's such a great skater, he becomes aggravating because you just look at a guy that's like, man, you can provide so much more. I remember I covered Victor Kozlov down in Florida, and Kozlov was one of those guys too that at the end of his career, he could have been the Russian Mario Lemieux, and he had that that type of skill set.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and he just always left you wanting more. Yeah. And that's sort of the same with JoJo.
You leave us wanting more. Unfortunately, we got to go. We got about a minute, so we got to get out of here.
I was looking at a goaltender. Can you give us any update on Wallstedt, how he's doing?
I think he's hurt again. I don't think it's a major one.
Let's end the show on that.
That's it. Yeah. Russo, thanks for swinging down.
Yeah, appreciate it, Michael.
Awesome stuff as always. Right. That's Michael Russo. Patrick, great job as always.
Thank you. You too.
Brett Blakemore as well. Thanks for everyone. Don't go away. Wild hockey is right around the corner. Wild hosting the Buffalo Sabres. If you can believe it, it's the conclusion of a 7-game homestand. Puck drop at 1:08. We're getting at it here in just a matter of moments, including we'll hear from Zach Bogosian. And we'll get ready. We'll hear from Tom Reed, Joe O'Donnell, the whole group. So thanks to Pat Micheletti. Thanks to all our guests. Brett Blakemore doing a great job back in the KFAN studios as well. For all of those people, thanks for checking us out each Saturday, 10 to noon. It's Beyond the Pond right here on KFAN.
For an extraordinary advantage in sports, you need a game plan. For an extraordinary advantage everywhere else, all you need is Acrisure. With a high-tech human approach to insurance, cybersecurity, and more, Acrisure helps you take care of what you care about. That makes winning easy. See what Acrisure's extraordinary advantage can do for you at Acrisure.com.